The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with light. Thousands of stars shone through the glass ceiling, and below them sat the leaders of 100 different worlds. They had come together to discuss trade, war, and peace. But today, there was something else on the schedule, something that most of them thought was a waste of time. Elder Ho walked slowly to the center of the hall. He was old, very old. His skin was gray and wrinkled like dry paper. His eyes were milky white, but they could still see things that younger beings could not understand. He had lived for 800 years, and he had seen empires rise and fall like waves on an ocean. The young counselors watched him with bored expressions. Commander Hana, the leader of the military council, crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair. She was tall and strong, with sharp eyes that had no patience for old stories. "Elders," she whispered to the counselor next to her, "always talking about the past. We have real problems to discuss." But protocol demanded that they listen, so they waited. Ho reached the speaking platform and stood there for a long moment. He looked at each face in the crowd, and something in his expression made a few of them uncomfortable. There was fear in those old eyes, real fear. "I come to warn you," he said. His voice was soft, but it carried through the entire hall. "I come to warn you about a species that lives on a small blue planet in a forgotten corner of the galaxy." Someone laughed. It was a counselor from the Empire, a powerful nation of warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. "A small blue planet," the counselor said. "Why should we care about such a place?" Ho did not smile. He did not get angry. He simply continued. "They call themselves humans," he said. "They are small. They are weak. Their bodies break easily. They live for less than 100 years, sometimes much less. They cannot breathe underwater. They cannot survive in the cold of space. They have no claws, no armor, no poison. By all measures, they should have died out long ago." More laughter spread through the hall. Commander Hana shook her head. "Then why are we talking about them?" she asked loudly. "If they are so weak, they are no threat to anyone." Ho turned to look at her. For a moment, his milky eyes seemed to glow. "Because," he said slowly, "I have seen what happens when you make them angry." The laughter stopped. Something in his voice had changed. It was harder now, like stone. 300 years ago, Ho continued, there was a great empire called the. They ruled over 50 star systems. Their fleet was the largest in the galaxy. Their soldiers were feared by all. And one day they found the humans. He paused and let the silence grow heavy. The thought the humans would be easy to conquer. They sent ships to the blue planet. They demanded that the humans surrender. They expected the humans to bow down and accept their fate like so many other species had done before. Ho shook his head slowly. The humans did not bow. They did not surrender. Instead, they looked up at the ships in their sky and they smiled. Commander Hana frowned. Smiled? Why would they smile? "Because," Ho said, "humans are not like other species. When they face danger, something happens inside their minds. Something ancient and terrible wakes up. Other species run from fear. Humans run toward it." He took a deep breath. They attacked. They destroyed human cities. They killed millions. They thought the war would be over in days. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. The war lasted 30 years. 30 years of blood and fire. The humans did not give up. They did not stop. Every time the thought they had won, the humans came back stronger. They learned how to use their own weapons against them. They built ships from the wreckage of their enemies. They fought in ways that no one had ever seen before. Ho looked around the hall again. They sent soldiers on missions with no hope of return, and those soldiers went gladly. They sacrificed entire cities to destroy a single enemy base. They turned their own planet into a trap that swallowed armies whole. He closed his eyes for a moment. And when it was over, when the last ship burned in the human sky, do you know what the humans did? No one answered. They built a monument, Ho said, not to celebrate their victory. No, They built it to remember their own dead, millions of names carved in stone, and then they went back to their lives as if nothing had happened. He opened his eyes. The Empire is gone now, completely gone. Their 50-star systems are empty. Their great cities are dust. No one remembers them except in old stories. And the humans, they went back to their small blue planet and continued to live their short lives. Commander Hana stood up. That was 300 years ago. Perhaps they were weak. Perhaps they made mistakes. We are not the. Ho looked at her with something that might have been pity. That is exactly what they said about the species that came before them. He began to walk away from the platform, but then he stopped and turned back one last time. Humans have a saying, he said. They say, do not wake a sleeping giant. Right now they are sleeping. They are happy on their small world, living their small lives. But if you go there, if you threaten them, if you try to take what is theirs, they will wake up. He pointed one thin finger at the gathered counselors. And when they wake up, they will not stop until you are gone, not defeated, gone, every ship, every soldier, every world you have ever known. They will burn it all and then they will go back to sleep as if you never existed. With that, Elder Ho walked out of the great hall. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Commander Hana laughed. It was a loud, harsh sound that echoed off the walls. Foolish old man, she said. He has lived too long. His mind is full of ghosts and shadows. The other counselors nodded in agreement. They were powerful. They had great fleets and strong armies. What could a small blue planet do against the might of the Galactic Council? The meeting continued. Trade agreements were signed, treaties were made, and the warning of Elder Ho was forgotten. But far away, on a small blue planet called Earth, humans continued to live their lives. They worked and played and loved and fought each other over small things. They had no idea that somewhere in the stars, someone had just made a terrible decision. A decision that would change the galaxy forever. 5 years passed after the meeting in the Great Hall. Elder Ho died quietly in his sleep, and with him died the last memory of the warning. The Galactic Council continued its business, and the small blue planet called Earth remained forgotten. But not by everyone. Admiral Sung of the Empire sat in his command chair and stared at the holographic map floating before him. He was a large being with thick purple skin and 4 arms that ended in hands like hammers. He had won 100 battles. He had conquered 12 worlds. And now he wanted something new. Tell me again about this planet, he said to his advisor. The advisor, a small nervous creature named One, pulled up the data on his tablet. It is called Earth, Admiral, located in an isolated corner of the galaxy. Population of approximately 8 billion beings. They have basic space travel but have not left their own star system. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. Sung smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. 8 billion, he said slowly. 8 billion workers, 8 billion slaves for the Empire. One shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, there are some old reports about this species. They suggest that they might be more dangerous than they appear. Sung laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. Dangerous? Look at them. He pointed at images of humans on the screen. They have soft skin, no natural weapons. They cannot even agree among themselves. They fight each other constantly over land and resources and ideas. They are children. He stood up from his chair and looked out the window of his ship at the vast fleet behind him. 200 warships, each one capable of destroying a city with a single blast. 50,000 soldiers, the finest warriors in the Empire. More than enough to conquer 100 Earths. Set course for the blue planet, he commanded. We will give them one chance to surrender. If they refuse, we will show them the true meaning of power. The fleet moved through space like a dark cloud. It took them 3 weeks to reach the outer edge of Earth's solar system. Along the way, Admiral Sung imagined all the glory that would come to him. He would be remembered as the conqueror of a new species. His name would be written in the history books forever. When the fleet appeared in Earth's sky, the humans did exactly what Sung expected. They panicked. Television screens around the world showed the massive alien ships blocking out the sun. People ran through the streets. Governments held emergency meetings. Militaries prepared their weapons, knowing that they were useless against such advanced technology. Admiral Sung broadcast his message to the entire planet. People of Earth, his voice boomed from every speaker, every radio, every device that could receive a signal. I am Admiral Sung of the Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to surrender all of your leaders to me. If you refuse, we will destroy your largest cities one by one until you obey. He leaned back in his chair, satisfied. This was always the easiest part. The fear, the confusion, the desperate scramble to survive. He had seen it many times before. But then something unexpected happened. A response came back from Earth within the hour. Not a surrender, not a plea for mercy, just a simple request for a meeting. They want to talk, Sung said, genuinely surprised. Most species beg for their lives immediately. One checked his tablet. It appears so, Admiral. They are sending a representative to negotiate. Sung considered this. It was unusual but not unheard of. Some species tried to bargain for better treatment. It never worked, but it was sometimes amusing to watch them try. Very well, he said. Let them come. I want to see what kind of creature thinks it can negotiate with the Empire. The human ship that approached the flagship was small and plain. It had no weapons, no shields, nothing that could pose any threat. When it landed in the docking bay, Admiral Sung went down personally to meet the representative. He wanted to see fear in their eyes. The door of the ship opened, and a woman stepped out. Her name was Sora. She was neither tall nor short, neither young nor old. She had black hair tied back in a simple style and dark eyes that seemed to look through everything they saw. She wore a plain gray suit with no decorations, no medals, no signs of rank or importance. She walked toward Admiral Sung as if she was taking a stroll through a garden. Admiral, she said, her voice calm and steady, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Sung towered over her. His purple skin and 4 arms should have been terrifying, but Sora looked at him the same way someone might look at a piece of furniture. You are the representative of Earth, he asked, allowing confusion to show in his voice. I am. Do you understand what is happening here? Do you understand that we can destroy everything you have ever known? Sora nodded. Yes, we understand. Then you have come to surrender. She tilted her head slightly, as if considering the question. No, she said simply, we have come to ask for 3 days. Admiral Sung blinked all 4 of his eyes. 3 days? 3 days for what? To prepare our response. The Admiral laughed. It was a huge, booming laugh that echoed through the docking bay. His soldiers joined in, their voices creating a wall of mocking sound. Your response, Sung said when he finally stopped laughing. You have no response. You have no weapons that can hurt us. You have no ships that can challenge ours. What response could you possibly prepare in 3 days? Sora did not react to the laughter. She did not look embarrassed or afraid. She simply stood there with a small smile on her lips, waiting for them to finish. That is our request, she said when the noise died down. 3 days. After that, we will give you our answer. Sung wiped a tear of amusement from his eye. This was the funniest thing he had experienced in years. These creatures were not just weak, they were delusional. Very well, he said. I will give you your 3 days. It will make no difference. But I am curious to see what you think you can accomplish in such a short time. Sora bowed her head slightly. Thank you, Admiral. You are very kind. She turned and walked back to her ship without another word. Sung watched her go, still smiling. What a strange species, he said to one. They truly believe they can do something. It is almost sad. One looked at his tablet, at the data about humans and their history. Something was bothering him, but he could not say what. "Admiral," he said quietly, "perhaps we should be careful. There is something about the way she looked at you. She did not seem afraid at all." Sung waved one of his hands dismissively. "She is too stupid to be afraid. In 3 days she will learn the truth. They all will." The human ship departed, and the fleet continued to wait in Earth's sky. Down on the planet, Sora returned to the underground bunker where the leaders of Earth were waiting. They all looked at her with desperate hope in their eyes. "Well," one of them asked, "did they accept?" Sora sat down and opened her laptop. "They gave us 3 days," she said. 3 days, that is not enough time. We cannot build weapons in 3 days. We cannot prepare defenses. 3 days is nothing. Sora looked up at them with that same calm expression she had worn throughout the meeting with the Admiral. 3 days is all we need, she said. We are not going to fight them with weapons. We are going to fight them with something much more dangerous. She turned her laptop around so they could see the screen. On it was a complex web of code, files, and network maps. The Admiral thinks we are primitive, she continued. He sees that we cannot travel between stars, so he assumes we know nothing about technology. But we have been connected to each other through machines for decades. We have been fighting wars in digital space since before he was born. And the moment his ships appeared in our sky, we started learning everything about them. She pointed at a diagram of the flagship. Their ships are all connected to each other. One central computer controls everything, from weapons to life support to navigation. They thought this made them strong. They were wrong. A slow smile spread across her face. In 3 days, we will own every ship in their fleet. Outside, the sun was setting over a frightened world. But somewhere in the darkness, thousands of the best minds on Earth were already at work. The countdown had begun. The first day passed slowly. Admiral Sung spent it relaxing in his quarters, enjoying fine food and drink brought from the... He watched entertainment programs on his private screen and laughed about the foolish humans below. His officers made bets about how quickly the Earth would surrender once the 3 days were over. The popular guess was less than an hour. Far below, in underground bunkers all over the planet, humans worked without sleep. Sora had gathered the greatest minds on Earth. There were no generals or politicians in her team. There were no soldiers or diplomats. Instead, she had collected programmers, hackers, engineers, and scientists. People who had spent their lives understanding how machines talk to each other. People who saw the world as ones and zeros, as signals and patterns, as problems waiting to be solved. "Tell me what you have found," she said on the first night. A young man named Ho, barely 20 years old with dark circles under his eyes from staring at screens since childhood, pulled up a holographic display. "Their communication signals are everywhere," he said. "They are not even trying to hide them. Their encryption is actually quite simple once you understand the pattern. It is based on mathematical concepts that we discovered 200 years ago." Sora nodded. "Can you read their messages?" "Already done. We have been listening to everything they say for the past 6 hours. The Admiral ordered a special dinner for tomorrow night. His second-in-command is having an affair with one of the navigators. A soldier on Deck 7 is homesick and writes poetry to his family every night." Despite the tension, a few people in the room laughed. "What about their ship systems?" Sora asked. Another member of the team, a woman named who had once been the most wanted hacker on Earth before the government convinced her to work for them instead of against them, stepped forward. "This is where it gets interesting," she said. "All 200 ships are connected to a central network controlled by the flagship. They share power, information, navigation data, everything. It is actually very efficient." "But," Sora prompted. Smiled. It was the smile of someone who had just found a very expensive vase sitting on a very thin shelf. But it means that if we can get into the flagship's main computer, we can control all of them at once. The room went quiet. "Can we do that?" someone asked. Looked at Ho. Ho looked at a third member of the team, an older man named one who had been building computers since before most of them were born. One scratched his chin. "We will need to send them something, a program that can hide inside their systems and wait for our signal. The problem is getting it past their security." "Their security is not the problem," Ho said. "Their security is based on blocking attacks from the outside. But what if we do not attack from the outside?" He pulled up another display showing the communication network. "They are broadcasting constantly. Updates, orders, entertainment for the crew. Everything flows from the flagship to the other ships through the same channels. If we can hide our program inside one of their own broadcasts, their systems will accept it without question." Sora leaned forward. "How long?" "2 more days," said. "Maybe less if we do not sleep." "Then do not sleep." The second day was harder. Admiral Sung grew bored of waiting. He decided to amuse himself by having his weapons officers destroy a small, uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean. The blast lit up the sky for hundreds of kilometers. On television screens around the world, people watched in horror. "That was just a demonstration," the Admiral broadcast to Earth. "The next one will not be empty." In the underground bunker, Sora watched the broadcast with a face made of stone. "How much longer?" she asked. 12 hours, Ho said without looking up from his screen. His fingers moved across the keyboard like a musician playing an instrument. "Maybe less." Sora nodded. "Keep working." Around the world, other teams were preparing as well. In China, a group of military engineers studied every piece of technology they could find, looking for weaknesses. In Germany, scientists analyzed the alien metal from a crashed probe, searching for anything useful. In America, a team of psychologists studied the language patterns, trying to understand how their enemies thought. Humans had always been good at war, but more than that, they had always been good at adapting. Every problem was just a puzzle. Every enemy was just an obstacle, and obstacles could be overcome. The third day arrived. Admiral Sung woke up early, eager to receive the human surrender. He put on his finest uniform, decorated with medals from all his conquests. He practiced his speech in front of the mirror, the one where he would graciously accept the Earth's submission and explain the terms of their new life as slaves of the Empire. At noon, exactly 72 hours after Sora had asked for time, the Admiral returned to the docking bay to receive her. The same small human ship landed in the same spot. The door opened, and Sora stepped out in the same plain gray suit she had worn before. "The time has come," Admiral Sung announced grandly. "Have you prepared your response?" Sora walked toward him until she was standing close enough to touch. "Yes," she said, "we have." The Admiral smiled. "Then speak. Present your surrender, and I will decide whether your people deserve mercy." Sora looked up at him with those dark, bottomless eyes. "We do not surrender," she said. Sung's smile flickered but did not disappear. "I do not think you understand your situation. We can destroy your entire planet." "No," Sora said calmly, "you cannot." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like nothing, just a simple piece of human technology, primitive and crude. "What is that?" the Admiral asked, suddenly uncertain. "This," Sora said, "is a button." She pressed it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every light on the ship went out. Emergency alarms started screaming. Red warning lights flashed on and off. Soldiers ran in every direction, shouting in confusion. "What is happening?" Sung roared. "What have you done?" Sora did not move. She stood in the middle of the chaos like a stone in the center of a river. "Right now," she said, her voice somehow clear above all the noise. "Every ship in your fleet is experiencing the same thing. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are offline. Your shields are offline. Your life support will continue to function because we are not monsters, but everything else belongs to us now." Sung grabbed her by the collar with two of his massive hands. He lifted her off the ground until they were face to face. "Impossible," he screamed. "You are primitive, you cannot do this." Sora did not struggle. She did not look afraid. "You made a mistake," she said quietly. "You looked at us and saw weakness. You saw that we cannot travel between stars, so you thought we knew nothing. But we have been fighting each other for thousands of years, Admiral. We have had wars that lasted for generations. We have developed weapons that can destroy our entire world. And we have learned that the most dangerous weapon is not a gun or a bomb." She leaned closer until her face was inches from his. "The most dangerous weapon is information, and we have been swimming in information since before your grandfather was born." The Admiral dropped her. His legs seemed to give out, and he fell back against the wall. "You cannot defeat us," he said, but his voice was weak now. "Even without our ships, we are warriors. We will fight to the last soldier." Sora straightened her suit and looked at him with something that might have been pity. "We do not want to fight you," she said. "We never wanted to fight anyone. We were happy on our little planet, living our short lives, dealing with our own problems. But you came here. You threatened us. You destroyed an island just to show off your power." She turned and began walking back to her ship. "This is your one chance," she called over her shoulder. "Leave now. Go back to your empire and tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is not a planet of slaves. Tell them that humans are not prey." She stopped at the door of her ship and looked back one last time. "And tell them that if anyone ever comes back with threats and demands, we will not be so kind next time." The door closed behind her. Admiral Sung sat on the floor of his own flagship, surrounded by his helpless fleet, and realized that the universe was not what he had thought it was. Far away, on a small blue planet, 8 billion humans looked up at the sky and waited. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the Elder's warning echoed through time. "Do not wake the sleeping giant." The giant was awake now, and it was watching. Admiral Sung did not leave as Sora had demanded. His pride would not allow it. Even with his ships paralyzed and his weapons useless, he refused to run from primitive creatures who could not even travel to other stars. This was his final mistake. 3 days after Sora's demonstration of human power, a small fleet of human ships approached the Armada. They were ugly things built from scraps and salvaged alien technology. They looked like toys compared to the massive warships. But inside those ugly ships was something far more dangerous than weapons. Captain One stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, a converted cargo ship that his crew had named the Angry Grandmother after someone's relative who never forgave and never forgot. He was a thin man with gray hair and a face that had seen too much combat in too many of Earth's wars. When the aliens had arrived, he had volunteered immediately. He was tired of fighting other humans. Finally, there was an enemy that everyone could agree on. "Admiral Sung," he broadcast to the flagship, "you were told to leave. You did not listen. Now we are going to teach you a lesson." Sung's voice came back, filled with rage. "You cannot hurt us. Your weapons are toys." One smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You are right," he said. "We cannot hurt your ships, but we do not need to." He nodded to his communications officer. Across the fleet, every screen and speaker suddenly came alive with human voices. But they were not threats or demands. They were stories. Stories about what humans did to enemies who threatened their homes. Stories about wars that lasted for decades. Stories about soldiers who kept fighting even when they had no hope of winning. Stories about what happened to invaders throughout human history. And they were not just words. There were images. Images of battles. Images of destruction. images of what humans had done to each other over thousands of years of conflict. The soldiers watched in horror. "This is what we do to enemies we hate," one's voice explained calmly. "Imagine what we will do to enemies who threaten to enslave our children." Within hours, the first ship surrendered, then another, then another. Admiral Sung screamed orders for his soldiers to stand firm, but fear had taken hold. These humans were not like any species that had ever conquered. They were something else entirely, something that enjoyed fighting, something that had been fighting since the beginning of their existence. By the end of the day, the entire fleet had surrendered except for the flagship. Sung stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by screens showing his defeated armada. "This is not over," he growled. "The Empire will send more ships, thousands of ships you cannot win." One's face appeared on the main screen. "You are probably right," the human captain said, "so we have decided not to wait for them to come to us." He leaned forward. "We are coming to you instead." Within 3 months, humans had learned how to fly ships. The captured fleet became the beginning of Earth's first space navy. Sora's hackers had downloaded everything from the computers, including star maps, technology blueprints, and most importantly, the location of every military base and colony. Captain 1 led the first strike against a supply station on the edge of their territory. It fell in 2 days. The second target was a military shipyard where new warships were being built. One's forces did not try to capture it. They destroyed it completely, leaving nothing but floating debris. The third target was a communications hub that connected the eastern half of the Empire. When it went offline, entire regions lost contact with their capital. The galaxy began to hear rumors. Whispers spread from world to world, from species to species. The humans were not defending their planet anymore. They were hunting. Commander Hana, who had laughed at Elder Ho's warning years ago, now sat in emergency meetings every day. The Galactic Council was terrified. This was not supposed to happen. Primitive species did not conquer advanced empires. They submitted or they died. Those were the only options. But no one had told the humans. One developed tactics that other species had never seen before. He used small, fast ships to attack supply lines while larger vessels distracted the main fleet. He sent soldiers on missions deep into enemy territory, missions where survival was unlikely, but success could change the course of the war. And volunteers lined up for these missions, knowing they might not come back. One of his officers, a young woman named Jin, asked him once why humans were so willing to die for others. One thought about it for a long time before answering. "Because we are not fighting for ourselves," he said finally. "We are fighting for everyone who comes after us. My grandmother taught me that. She survived a war that killed millions of people, and she told me that every sacrifice she saw was made by someone who wanted the future to be better than the present." He looked out the window at the stars. "We are not a perfect species. We have done terrible things to each other, but when something threatens all of us, we become something else, something stronger, something that does not know how to give up." The Empire sent reinforcements, thousands of ships, just as Sung had promised. They expected to crush the human rebellion quickly and violently. They were wrong. The humans had studied every captured ship, every piece of technology, every tactic they had ever used. They knew how they thought, how they fought, how they reacted to pressure, and they used that knowledge like a weapon. Battle after battle, the lost ground. They were not used to enemies who adapted this quickly. They were not used to enemies who turned their own weapons against them. They were not used to enemies who seemed to get stronger after every defeat. 6 months after the first human ships left Earth, the Empire controlled half the territory it had before. Their economy was crumbling, their military was exhausted, and their people were starting to ask questions that had never been asked before. Why were they fighting these humans? What had they ever done to Earth? Why had the Empire started a war it could not win? Captain One did not celebrate these victories. He knew the war was not over. He knew that many more people would die before it ended. But he also knew something else. He knew that for the first time in history, humans were not alone in the universe. And for the first time in history, the universe was learning to be afraid of them. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, Commander Hana stared at the war maps with empty eyes. Red areas showing control were shrinking every day. Blue areas showing human advances were spreading like a disease. She remembered Elder Ho's words now. She remembered his warning. She remembered laughing at him. The memory felt like a knife in her chest. One of her advisors approached nervously. "Commander," he said, "they are requesting our help. They want us to send ships to reinforce their fleet." Hana did not respond for a long moment. "No," she finally said. "No, but if the fall, the humans might come for us next." Hana turned to look at him. There was something broken in her expression. "If we send ships to help we will only make the humans angrier. We will give them a reason to come for us. Right now, they are focused on their enemy. Let them stay focused." She turned back to the maps. "And pray that when they finish with they decide they have had enough of war." Far away, on the bridge of the Angry Grandmother, Captain One received word that another base had fallen. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply nodded and asked for the coordinates of the next target. The hunt continued. And somewhere in the void of space, the ghost of Elder Ho watched and waited for the final chapter to begin. The war ended not with a great battle, but with a quiet surrender. The Emperor, a being so old that no one remembered his original name anymore, knelt before Captain One in the grand palace of His purple skin had turned gray with age and stress. His 4 hands trembled as he signed the document that dissolved his empire. "You have taken everything from us," the Emperor said, his voice hollow. One looked at him without hatred or joy. "No," he said, "we took nothing. You came to our world uninvited. You threatened our people. You tried to make us slaves. Everything that happened after that was your own doing." The Emperor had no response. What could he say? The human was right. Outside the palace, the sky was filled with human ships. Not warships anymore, but transport vessels carrying food, medicine, and engineers. The humans had destroyed the military, but they were not destroying the people. Instead, they were rebuilding what the war had broken. This confused everyone. "Why are they helping us?" a young asked his mother as human doctors treated his wounds. His mother did not know how to answer. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were happening on every former world. Humans arrived not as conquerors but as something stranger. They built hospitals. They repaired infrastructure. They taught local populations how to govern themselves. When other species asked why, the humans always gave the same answer. "We did not want this war. We did not want to destroy your empire. We only wanted to be left alone. But since we had to fight, we decided that the war would mean something. We decided that when it was over, things would be better than before." Commander Hana watched these developments from the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. She was no longer the confident military leader who had laughed at Elder Ho's warning. She was older now, smaller somehow, as if the weight of her mistakes had physically shrunk her. A human delegation had requested an audience with the council. It was not a demand. It was a polite request, but everyone knew that refusing was not really an option. Sora led the delegation. She walked into the Great Hall the same way she had walked onto Admiral Sunk's ship years ago, calm and unhurried. She wore the same plain gray suit. She had the same dark, bottomless eyes. "Counselors," she said, standing in the center of the hall where Elder Ho had once stood, "thank you for meeting with us." No one responded. They were all too afraid. Sora smiled slightly, as if she understood their fear. "We are not here to threaten you," she said. We are not here to demand tribute or obedience. We are here because it is time to change how things work in this galaxy." She gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing a map of known space. For thousands of years, strong species have conquered weak species. Empires have risen and fallen, each one built on the suffering of others. This is what they tried to do to us. This is what countless empires have done before them. She paused and looked around the room. "We want this to stop." Commander Hana found her voice. "What do you mean?" "We mean exactly what we say. No more empires. No more conquests. Every species has the right to exist in peace on their own worlds. Any species that attacks another without justification will face consequences." A murmur ran through the hall. "And who decides what is justified?" one counselor asked nervously. "Who decides what the consequences are? You." Sora shook her head. "Not us alone. All of us together. That is why we are here. We want to rebuild the Galactic Council into something new. Something that actually protects every species equally. Something with rules that everyone follows, including us." She let that sink in. "We know you are afraid of us now. You should be. We have shown you what we can do when we are threatened. But we have also shown you what we do when the fighting is over. We rebuild. We help. We try to make things better." She took a step forward. "We could rule this galaxy by force. We have the ships now. We have the soldiers. We have technology that we did not have 2 years ago. But we do not want to rule. We never wanted power. We just wanted to live our short lives in peace." Her voice softened. "All we ask is that you give us that chance. And in return, we will help you build something new, something better. A galaxy where no species has to fear invasion. A galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them." She looked directly at Commander Hana. "Your elder tried to warn you about us. He told you what happens when humans are threatened, but he only told you half the story." Sora walked toward the commander until they were face to face. "Humans are dangerous when we are angry. That is true, but we are also generous when we are at peace. We share knowledge. We help others. We form connections with anyone who treats us with respect." She extended her hand. Elder Ho knew this too. He knew that humans could be the greatest threat this galaxy has ever seen or the greatest ally. The choice was never ours. It was always yours. Commander Hana stared at the extended hand. Behind her, the entire council watched in silence. "Why?" Hana whispered. "Why would you offer peace after everything we did, after we ignored the warning, after we let the attack you?" Sora did not lower her hand. "Because holding on to anger is exhausting," she said simply. "Because we are tired of fighting. Because our children deserve to grow up in a universe where they do not have to be afraid." She smiled. "And because humans have always believed that tomorrow can be better than today. That is our greatest strength, Commander. Not our weapons or our technology or our ability to adapt. Our greatest strength is hope." Commander Hana reached out slowly and took Sora's hand. "We accept," she said, and her voice broke on the words. "We accept your offer." The great hall erupted in sound. Some species cheered, others wept. A few simply stared in disbelief at what they were witnessing. The galaxy was changing, not through conquest or war, but through something the ancient empires had never understood. Joyce. 1 year later, a monument was built on the. It stood in the main square of their capital city, a massive structure of white stone that reached toward the sky. On the monument were carved the names of every being who had died in the war, and human alike. Millions of names, covering every surface from base to peak. And at the very top, carved in letters that could be seen from kilometers away, were words from the last message Elder Ho had ever written. "They are small, they are weak, they are fragile, but they carry something inside them that makes even the stars tremble. Do not fear this thing. Understand it. Learn from it. Because if you can understand humans, you will understand the greatest truth in the universe, that life is precious, every life, and it must be protected. Captain One stood at the base of the monument with Sora at his side. They did not speak. They did not need to. The war was over. The galaxy was at peace for the first time in recorded history. And somewhere in the void between stars, the ghost of an old elder finally found rest. Humans had been given a warning and a choice. They chose hope. And the galaxy would never be the same again. Far away, on a small blue planet called Earth, children played in parks and parents went to work and life continued as it always had. Most of them did not think about the war or the galaxy or the great events that had changed everything. They were too busy living their short, precious lives. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.